Hey, welcome to this episode. We finally made it to the finishes phase, and we're going to be talking about this product which we found last year at the build show, and we like it a lot. It's called Medite, so see you in a few seconds to talk more about it. Let's start discussing the purpose of the shed. So this will eventually become a workshop. So with this in mind, we didn't want to use drywall because if it's a shop, we want to be able to hang cabinets or tools or whatever we want, wherever we want, without having to worry about having a stud behind it. So we said, let's look for some structural material. And we really like the look of MDF and particle board, but the problem is that they are extremely flammable, they are not very good with water, so we kept on looking for options. We considered OSB, we considered plywood, but it's very difficult to give them a nice finish. So we continued looking, and then when we went to the build show, we found this very nice product. It's actually from Roseburg. We're not sponsored, we just like the product. And it's called Medite. They have a few versions. They have one that it's resistant to water, but this one in particular is called Medite FR, and it has a Class A fire rating. So if you consider that this is a shop, we have about 25 to 30 outlets, we're running tools and all of that, having fire protection properties, it's pretty convenient. So that's the reason why we chose it. It looks pretty nice also, so we don't have to worry about any additional finishes. Now, the only thing is that in true Hector and Marcela fashion, we like to start with the most difficult things. So we have never done finishes, and we decided to start with the most difficult panel of them all. So it has an angle cut at the top, and then it has two outlets. But at the end, it turned out pretty well. It would have been easier to start with drywall, where if you make a mistake, you just apply mud and you can apply a patch. But I mean, overall, everything is working great so far.
Alright, so we have installed all the basic Medite panels around the perimeter, but we now have a small problem, and that is related to these windows. You see 2 here, 3 up here, and well, the problem is that we don't actually have windows. We have ordered them, and we won't be getting them for at least 12 weeks or so, hopefully sooner. But the problem is that we want to do a drywall return, or in this case, it'll be a Medite return. So that's a very modern finish with a nice trim and everything, but we don't actually know how that's going to be looking. So what we're doing is we're going to be leaving these Medites slightly longer, so that when we actually do get the windows, we can actually cut them to size, so that everything lines up nice and perfect. We're going to be doing the same here for the door. We're going to be leaving an opening, because actually this door is starting to break down. You saw on the thermal camera a few videos ago that it has a few leaks. So we're going to be reworking this door anyway. So yeah, that's what you're going to be seeing. We'll be taking care of the details of the windows when we get the windows. So that's as far as we can get on this episode. So let's get to work.
So you have seen us use several types of rib guides. Some we purchased, some others we got for free. But here is our very new preferred method. So it's just a piece of LSL which is perfectly straight. And what we do is just attach it with clamp with a piece of scrap material, just so we don't damage the bottom, because it's finished material. And it works great. So let's do a cut so you can check it out.
We're getting close to done with all the paneling, so that means we're also almost done with all the outlets. But first, before I talk about that, I want to mention real quick that we're adding a zip tape at the bottom of all these panels that are next to the concrete, mainly to protect them, even though we have added shims at the bottom to make sure they're not touching the concrete. But also because we're going to be putting radiant heat here on the floor, which means we're going to have thin set, and then that's going to be raising the height. And even though we might we will protect them when we install it. There's a chance that they could get splattered or whatever. So that's why the zip tape is there. But also, now that we're almost getting done to the finish line, I want to show you real quick how we are finding the holes for the outlets. So I looked around. So there's many choices for drywall options. So there's some magnetic tools, there's like some chalk, and a lot of those tools require you to do like routing around it. But as you might know, we're using structural material, and it's not as easy to be like routing around all of this. It would be a tremendous mess. So I looked around. I considered using chalk, the drywall chalk or whatever. But even though that was a little bit more expensive than our solution, the solution that I found, and for that we are using lipstick. So basically what we end up doing is we put lipstick on at least 3 of the sides of the outlet. And then with that in place, we push the panel in, and then we smack it a couple times, and that typically marks the lipstick very well and the outlet. So a couple of things about that real quick. Initially when we started putting all this stuff in, we were putting lipstick all around it, but we found that if you smear it, it's very difficult to find out which one was the original one. So what we've been doing is we've been putting a little bit of lipstick on the sides, but not on the corner. And typically you only just need 3 sides. And so yeah, that's basically what we're doing. So now let's go outside and I'll show you how we're cutting that. And now we just mark the outline with a spare box.
As you can see, we have finished installing all our Medite panels, so now I'm going to ask Hector to start installing all the electrical outlets, and in the meantime I'll be detailing all the joints. And for this I'm going to be using Exact Color from Sashco. If you're not familiar with it, it's an amazing sealant, but the beauty is that you can add whatever paint you want. So we already chose this one that looks closely to Medite, so come, let me show you how I do the mix. The first step is to open the cartridge, so you need to cut the cap, but make sure that you keep the thread because then you're going to put the cap like this. Step 2, extract up to 30 milliliters of water-based paint and inject them into the cartridge. Next, put on the cap and shake it until uniform for about 60 seconds. Okay, I got tired of shaking, so I brought in the reinforcements. That didn't go as planned. So that played very differently in my head. So here we go with take 2, but I'm not going to be using the Sawzall anymore. I should mention I saw that tip on the internet and it worked beautifully, so don't believe everything that you see on the internet. The reason why we brought the Sawzall was because we were not getting a uniform color at the top. So what we're going to do now is we're going to apply the paint little by little to see if that works better. So as you can see, the color is uniform now all over the cartridge. So the next step is going to be applying the thickener. But one tip we came up with is we actually extracted 1 syringe of sealant to make the shaking easier. One final note, I just noticed that this one has a hole at the top, so when you're going to shake it, make sure that you use this cap. So now we just have to wait 30 minutes. It wasn't the cleanest experience of them all, but at least we have it ready to go. So in 30 minutes, we can put it on. let's close this out. As you can see, Hector finished with all the electrical outlets, and I have a few notes on the finishes. So we knew that we would have the fasteners exposed, so we decided to make them a feature, kind of like an industrial look for the shop. So we chose these ones. These are GRKs 1.5, and as you can see, they have a brass color that blends pretty nicely with the Medite. But since they were going to be a final finish, we decided to use a jig for installing them. So it's pretty simple. We just made the holes where they need to go, and this ensures that everything is aligned. So what we did is we just aligned it at the bottom, and then we used the laser to make sure it was vertically straight. And I'm pretty happy with the outcome. The other thing I should mention, when you use exact color, it's recommended to use a bucket rod if you ever come to one of Sashco's zero failures. They're amazing both leads. It's very good at giving you this stitching. And what this does is it makes that when you apply the sealant, it's going to be attached only on two sides instead of three. So it gives it a bit more flexibility. And it's very flexible. So for example, this is a 1/4 inch wide, but I could fit it into this small opening. And well, that's what we have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, please consider giving us a like, subscribing to our channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye!